Welcome to the Clemson Insider. I'm Will Vandervoort as we get you set for Clemson-South Carolina. The Tigers and Gamecocks meet next week in Columbia. Noon kickoff. That has me excited. This has me, the guy to my left, excited. In case you don't remember who he is, Yusef Kelly, Clemson running back from back in the day. Let me make sure I get my years right. 2002 to 5?
No, 2000 to 2004.
2004. Sorry.
I'm considered an old head now.
Yeah, well, you're young to me. So anyway, Yusef, thanks for coming, man.
Oh,
we
absolutely.
appreciate you coming in here.
No problem at all.
We'll start off with the rivalry because that's really the main part we brought you in. We wanted to kind of get a player's perspective of how intense it is because, for the fans, it's different. For the players, I think, and then I think it maybe changes for you guys afterwards. So what's it like, first of all, when you're playing in the game, and then second of all, when you leave school and you become that fan?
Well, when you're playing in the game, even if you knew the guy from high school, if you played against him from high school, if he was your friend before, during competition, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Like, that is the guy you're trying to destroy, figuratively, of course. But that's who you're trying to destroy. That's who you're trying to defeat. That's what who you're trying to just say, hey, listen, we're friends off the field, but on the field, not today. Mm-hmm. So it's very intense. Most of the time, of course, we do it within the confines of competition, and but when you make that transition to a fan and you're not playing anymore, you see the other side of it because, like with the players, it stops when the game stops. But with fans, there is no stopping. It's year round. Like there is no off season.
Yeah, and as you can see, Yusef is a big fan of Clemson still, as he should be. Any Tiger is, and representing here today. And okay, let's start off. You came in 2000, and those are the years where Coach Bowden's, I guess, second year there, and so you came in with that staff was relatively young, and he was trying to build the program. And can you talk about how different it was for you coming out of high school and then getting that transition, and then also getting ready for this game that first year or two?
Coming out of high school, I didn't like have guidance per se to say, hey, look at this offense, look at your running style, and cater yourself to that. So I was just, being recruited and stuff like that, just narrowing schools down for stupid reasons. Like, I said I wouldn't go to a school that wasn't a Nike school, different stuff like that. Like, it's just crazy stuff. But ultimately, I love Clemson. I love the staff. Everybody loved Coach Rick Stockstill. When I got there, I literally had to adjust quick. Now, mind you, when I went to college, when I started there, I was only 17 years old.
Right, I remember.
I had what they would consider a late birthday. So I had to learn the whole offense in 2 days of practice. Wow. 2 days. And so it all came fast, I was the type of person, like I was smart in school, and you could tell me to do something and I would go out and I would apply that.
Right.
So I had to learn really quick. I had to learn where a Z receiver was, Y, X, and H. Like, I came from a power out offense, so it was just, power out right, power out left, and stuff like that. But I really had to make the adjustment really, really quick.
And Rich Rodriguez was the offensive coordinator still then at the time. And what was that like? I heard pretty intense to play for Coach Rodriguez.
Gosh, intense is not the word. But I swear, him and the defensive coordinator, Reggie Herring, they made practice so entertaining because they would go back and forth with each other all practice long. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen when you're dealing with coaches. But yeah, he was super intense, and everything was fast. Everything was sped up. That was that beginning phase of the no huddle offenses. So it was a huge adjustment for me because, like I said, I came from a I formation power out offense to now I'm running the spread offense. So when they first introduced the zone play to me, I was like, wait, you want me to run to the sideline and look for what and do what? Like, it was a huge adjustment for me. So, but yeah, back then that guy was at that time, I mean, he was brilliant.
So that 2000 season was, y'all guys got off to an 8-0 start. I know you were playing behind Travis Zachary at the time. So that was at that time a big run for Clemson. They hadn't been on a run like that in a long time. What was it like for you guys and to see yourselves sitting up there? I think at one time you peaked at number 5 in the country. At one point.
I actually think once we got to 8-0, I mean, depending on what poll you looked at, we were actually as high as 3rd.
Okay. That's right, actually, that is correct.
But anytime you're winning, it is extraordinary, it's fun, practice doesn't seem like business, you're out there having a good time. So we felt like we were on top of the world. Now, I don't think any of us felt like, okay, we've arrived, because, we still had that beast named Florida State we had to deal with.
Right.
So we were level-headed, but we were having fun. And I think back then, that's what a lot was missing from the program, like fun.
So the first year, that is your first Carolina-Clemson game was, it depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to a Clemson guy, it was a great catch. So
it was a great catch.
Catch 2.
In the discussion.
Catch 2. And then if you're on that other side of that team down south, if you will, they like to think somebody pushed off. But the game itself, though, 16-14, Lou Holtz on the other side. You guys, Woody throws an amazing pass there at the end to set it up. So when they score on the fumble recovery in the end zone to take the lead, what are you guys thinking? Like, oh, man, no way we're going to lose this? What's going on in y'all's head?
No, I mean, you might think I'm joking, but for a lot of us, like, I didn't play that game. So I was more concerned with how cold it was than us losing the game. But, when they scored, it was like this pure calmness just took over. Like, the stadium was quiet. All you could hear is the Carolina fans over here in the corner cheering like it was crazy. And it kind of reminded me of when we played Georgia Tech and they made that. Gosh, he had like an inch between his foot and out of bounds, and he just stuck that one hand out and made the grab. When the stadium got, I mean, it was instantly silent. And when they scored, that's what it was. But this time, unlike the Georgia Tech game, we had a chance to win the game. See, Georgia Tech, that was the last play of the game, but South Carolina, we had a chance to win the game. We had a chance to show resilience, and that's what we ended up doing.
When Rod made the catch, first of all, where were you on the sideline? Did you see that he made the catch?
Yeah, standing up on the bench. It was too cold to sit on that metal. So, you had to stand up, and we were near the heaters, but we could see everything. So
it probably got deafening, I'd imagine, when he came down with that from your standpoint.
You couldn't hear a pin drop. It was so loud. Like, all you hear is a bunch of noise on this side, a bunch of noise on that side. But then it had to get quiet again for the kick. Yeah.
2002, you were part of the 100th celebration of the rivalry. That had to be pretty special to say that you played in that game, and it was a game you guys kind of dominated from start to finish.
Yeah, that was a pretty awesome game, and I think we ran out the last 6 minutes and 25 seconds of that game, and that was a good feeling. I mean, I felt like I couldn't be stopped. My receivers couldn't be stopped. Like, that was just a phenomenal drive. And gosh, I mean, anytime you win, especially against them, is a great feeling. But the way we did it,
well, you came back, you dominated the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that's what made it special.
And Charlie, I didn't know Charlie had wheels like that until that one run there.
Listen, Charlie reminded me of Deshaun and Trevor Lawrence before they became who they were, simply because Charlie was a pocket passer who could run. He didn't run unless he had to, and that's what made him dangerous, because a lot of people know he just sit back in the pocket, pick people apart and make throws down the field. But what we see in practice, we knew he was capable of running, but once again, he didn't have to. You know?
And so if Charlie would have had his hair longer, he would have really looked
I mean, he looks like John Wick now. So, I always told him he looked like Keanu Reeves did when he was in the replacements.
Yeah, that's hilarious. He did. It did.
Yeah.
That's then of course 03 is the year every Clemson fan remembers, and still to this day. I mean, even though the team a couple years ago, 56-7, in the scheme was from margin of victory standpoint was a larger margin of victory, but people still talk about the 2003 game more than that. Did you guys know going into Williams-Brice that day that you were gonna not say lay 63 on them, but just absolutely smash them the way you did?
No, because we always expected a dogfight with them. You know, no matter what the record was for either team, like you knew going into that game, you were going to have to tough it out. And when it turned out the way it did, I mean, it was a surprise.
Yeah.
So.
Charlie goes out there, 3 touchdown, bang. He hits Ben Hall down the middle. Then I think he hit Derek Hamilton. And then Aries Curry, right? Then it was like bang, bang, bang.
I don't think people understand how fast our receivers were that year. I mean, you had 6'4" Kevin Youngblood, 6'4" J.J. McKelvey, 6'3" Derek Hamilton, 6'5" Ben Hall, and then waiting in the wings, you still had the next number 1 tight end in the nation, Todd McClinton. Like, I mean, receivers, it was loaded and they were fast. Aries, oh my God, Aries Curry, that was probably one of the fastest human beings I had ever seen. Because I still remember when he came up for his official visit, he was on crutches with a broken foot. Yeah. And this is like January. March, he was back at track running like a 10-1. And I said, oh my God. I said, that dude is fast. And he's still fast. He posts his workout videos and stuff, and he does training, and he posts the videos on Facebook, and I'm just like, when that dude runs, it just looks like he's floating on the air, and, that's how our receivers were that year. I mean, they were very underrated.
And you had Chancey Stuckey, he was the backup quarterback, and all he did was just go, 40-something yards on that last touchdown there, just off the end, and ended up being a wide receiver, an all-ACC guy.
It's funny because a lot of the people that changed positions at Clemson turned out to be great players at the position they changed to, and that was just a testament to some of those players getting in the right position at the right time.
Now, that game, there was a lot of talk afterwards and everything else, and so it sets up, I guess, the next season 29-7, but there was the final score. But unfortunately, that's not what everybody talks about.
Right.
And I wanted to bring you in because you're a guy that I want you to talk about on several levels. First of all, what happened, to kind of get? It seemed like, okay, and so people who don't know, 2004 was the year the brawl between Clemson and Carolina, and was there something that led to it? Was there one single thing that led to things getting heated, or was it something that happened throughout the game? Can you pinpoint your memory on some of that? Oh,
I remember it vividly, and it wasn't just one particular incident. Like, it was multiple factors that leading up from the start of that week. And to start it off, Lou Holtz announced his retirement that week.
Right.
So that was one factor. And then, of course, when we get ready to run down the hill, they run out of the tunnel and they meet us at the bottom of the hill. That was another, factor in it because it was, pushing and shoving going on then. Then during the game, there were cheap shots thrown back and forth all game, and referees didn't punish anybody because when they threw flags, they threw offsetting penalties. So it was no punishment on either side.
So guys keep doing it.
Right. So if you're going to throw flags on everybody, so why not do it? And I think I wouldn't say they were planning it that way, but that's just the way it worked out. And then, when Savell Newton got hit on that last play, I think some of their players felt like our guy, pushed down on him when he was getting up. And, of course, South Carolina guy hits him when our guys hits him, and unfortunately,
like
the brawl
the
brawl was the end result.
Yeah, and so for you personally, you're seeing, you were a picture taken of you, and you kind of got into the middle of it. Right. How have you handled that? And that's not who you are. I mean, I covered you your last year here and knew that you were not that kind of young man either. But in the middle of the heat of action, like, Yusef, 22-year-old Yusef Kelly, what was going through your mind and what sparked that, that guy, that happened?
I wasn't even 22 yet.
That's right, you're 21 because you're a little bit younger.
I was a youngster, you know. I tell people all the time, like, I went to high school when I was 13, went to college when I was 17. I graduated with a degree in 3.5 years right after I turned 21. So I was a youngster out there, but I try to tell people all the time, don't judge people in a snapshot of the moment.
Absolutely.
Because people don't realize I was on 3 different leadership committees, and still to this day, shout out to Philip Darnell because I know he likes when I say this. I really went on that field as a peacemaker at first, and somebody just posted a clip of the brawl where it shows me on the field just standing around. And then a guy that had his helmet off runs over and try to hit Anthony Waters. And so I go over there and you can see me on camera trying to separate them. And then you see Woodley Telford walk up behind me and just grab me and put me in a chokehold and just start shaking me. And I tried to tell everybody, I said, see, I didn't start it.
No, yeah.
But, unfortunately, I did have a part in that.
Yeah.
And the only thing I really remember about that is we were surrounded, and then it's just like when I made that decision to do what I did, it's just like everything just parted, and they had the perfect shot, But looking back at it now, it follows me everywhere. But now it's more funny than it is, that was a bad thing back then. But this time of year, I typically leave social media alone because that picture gets posted 1,000 times and people make stupid comments underneath it, and I just, to avoid dealing with it, I just stay off around this time of year.
In sports psychology especially, you try to get into, because football is a violent game. Mm-hmm. And these are guys out there that are running 4.5, 4.4 40s, 230, 240 pounds, 6'2", 3, 4, big athletes that sometimes and we just saw it last week in the Steelers-Browns game, where people lost their cool, and guys that are very good players and got a lot of respect around the league lost their cool in the moment and did some things that they're probably not proud of. How can you relate to it when you saw that, knowing that, okay, this is the game of football, but unfortunately, some people don't understand that just because what they saw, not necessarily who that guy is, correct?
And I could totally sympathize with Myles Garrett from a point where somebody was doing something to you that nobody seems to care about. They only care about the one bad decision you tried to do, but that's not who you are as a person because you've never had any of that in your career before. But because you made that one bad decision, that's what you're being judged on.
Right.
And like I said, Mason Rudolph played his part in it by trying to snatch his helmet off and literally grab the back of it and try to pull it up. And, Myles Garrett jerks his helmet off, and then he gets separated by a Steeler lineman. And then as he's getting pushed back, of course, Mason Rudolph runs back up into it. And that's when, Myles Garrett makes the decision to swing the helmet at him. And then Mason Rudolph plays the victim. Now, granted, I don't condone any of that. Right. But I bring that up to say it's not just one factor that causes that. Like, it's multiple things that happen. Yeah.
Like you, for instance, you're there trying to be peacemaker, and then somebody comes up behind you. Well, I think any of us would react the same way once somebody's trying to choke us. I mean, that's a natural reaction.
He's a big dude. I mean, he was 6'8", 350. Like, when he grabbed me, he lifted me up off my feet. Like, and I wasn't a small guy. I think I was playing at 235 my senior year, so I wasn't a small guy. And he lifted me straight up off off my feet, and just was tossing me. But and I'm not saying that excuses what I did,
exactly.
But once again, we're just saying there's factors that led up to that.
Led to it.
That sometimes you get judged by your reaction and not what happened prior to that.
Or in your case, all people see is the photo, and everybody thinks that's what it was, and that's not what it was or who you are either.
Right.
how long did it, I won't say, because you sound like from everything you were telling me leading up to that moment, where you were in the program and the leadership council and all that stuff. Like, I guess I assume it didn't take you too long to understand the ramifications. And then also, what did you, how did you learn from that? And how do you, as you went forward in your life, use that moment to not say, okay, this isn't I can turn this bad thing and use it as a good thing.
Right. I would say it was probably a span of a week. Because when I saw the picture in the paper the next day, we thought it was cool. Mm-hmm. And, little did we know when we had the team meeting later that afternoon that, people were getting suspended. We wasn't going to a bowl game, and, we were told not to do any interviews. And, of course, I'm thinking, I'm a senior. I don't play here no more. Like, why can't I do an interview? And so I remember doing the interview on the phone, driving to Atlanta, and then the headline of that interview was, Kelly has no remorse for the brawl.
Oh, man.
And I'm just thinking, that's why he said don't do an interview after the game. But reading that interview and how they flipped some of my words and try to make it seem like I was being cynical and didn't care, like, I didn't like that. I didn't agree with that at all. So, after getting all the death threats and, the racist emails and all that stuff, because back then our emails were public. You could just go on the Clemson website, search for any student, and look up their email address.
Wow.
And so, I was getting all kinds of threats, racist mail. I didn't pay no attention, told to go back to Africa and all stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm from Walterboro, South Carolina. I'm not from Africa.
Right.
But
that's horrible, man.
I got all kinds of stuff. And like I said, I didn't pay it any attention because I'm like, whatever. But
that still had to hurt a little bit. I mean, you're a 21-year-old guy, and somebody's telling you stuff like that. That can't, that's got to hurt some, right?
I wouldn't necessarily say hurt. Of course, back then,
Or stung.
no, I was pissed off.
There you go.
I was mad. But at some point in time, I realized if I get mad and I react out of anger, I'm just going to repeat what I just did in the game.
Good point.
So, I matured. It took a week in a bad headline and article, but. At that point, that's when I realized that's why he didn't want nobody to do an interview right after that.
So you, when did now you're in the work for the Pickens County Sheriff's Department? Is that right?
Easley Police Department.
Easley Police Department, and you actually do what's the exact title? I don't want to mess it up.
I'm the sergeant over the school resource officers.
There you go. So you're in the line of police. When did you know you wanted to do that, and did any of this kind of lead you down that road to where you wanted to do it?
Well, growing up, I always wanted to be a police officer. Of course, there's other things you want to try to do first, and it's kind of like your fallback career. But, it's always something I knew I could be good at. And so I actually went to Ohio for 2 years and played some arena football.
Okay.
And I loved game day, hated everything else leading up to it. So after that second year, I was like, you know what, I'm done. At the time, I had a girlfriend, had a kid, and I'm like, I need a steady paycheck. So, it's time to go to the real world. And that's when I came back and applied to a couple of places and started with the Anderson County Sheriff Department.
And how is all this, your experiences, not just what happened in 2004, but your experiences, period, how does that help you, especially when you're with young men and women, and maybe there's a situation you have to diffuse? Right.
Well, at the time, I became the youngest second youngest person ever to work at the police academy as an instructor. And while I was there, I was in charge of a program called SALTS. It was Safe and Legal Traffic Stops. And in that, we went over, how to properly react to people that is giving you an issue. Mm-hmm. So with that, teaching that to law enforcement, teaching that how to control yourself, control your anger, how not to let people get underneath your skin, I use what I've been through to relay that message. And now that I'm in the high school, the kids love it, they eat it up. Now I have them at an age or a time where I can kind of mold them and tell them, based on my experiences, what to do and what not to do.
That's awesome, man. And so, you're from Walterboro, as you mentioned. Growing up in this state, did you grow up a Gamecock or Tiger? How did you grow up?
Actually, I grew up a Florida State fan.
Oh, wow.
And it's crazy. I thought about this on the way. I said, you could ask my 7th grade English teacher, Dwayne Buckner, I think he's councilman down there now. He asked me what I wanted to do when I grow up, and I told him, I want to go play for Florida State. And he said he was determined to get me there. And then, of course, when I got to high school, believe it or not, I can never remember even hearing about Clemson until they sent me my first letter. They was the very first school to send me my very first letter. Wow. And so after that, because in my hometown, unfortunately, everybody was Gamecock. That's all you heard, Gamecock, But I say that now, but of course, growing up, you don't know any different.
Yeah.
But when I started getting those letters my sophomore year, they started coming one after the other. Clemson, Florida State, Michigan State, Ohio State, Tennessee, like you name it, they were sending me letters and stuff. So, I grew up a Florida State fan. Well, my good friend Greg Jones, of course, beat me as far as committing to a school. He went to Florida State.
Correct.
And I think they had a couple other running backs that committed that year, so that took them out of the running for me because I'm like, it's too many. So
you end up going to Clemson, obviously, and so what's this rivalry mean to you when it comes up every year, this Clemson-South Carolina game? As a former Tiger, played in it, what does it mean to you?
It means don't lose this game. But unfortunately, our programs are going in different directions, and I tell people all the time, like, this for us is still a game you have to win, but in the grand scheme of things, we have bigger plans than just beating them. They're a stepping stone to where we want to get. But I tell people all the time, if we want this rivalry to matter outside of South Carolina, both teams have to be doing well. That's what makes Michigan and Ohio State, that's what makes Texas and Oklahoma, like it's usually some type of national implication on the line. And that's why people around the country tune in, because it means more. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that Clemson-South Carolina doesn't mean anything, but I'm just saying with our programs in the opposite directions right now, unfortunately, it only matters to Clemson-South Carolina fans and people in the state.
But for that to happen, then that means they have to win, and that's the dilemma.
Hey, listen, they can win the other 11 games and lose that one. I'm perfectly fine with that, okay?
Real quick before we get you out of here, your son is a fine ball player, and you're having to get him through. What's it like being on the other end? Like you were the guy recruited, now you're there for your son.
It's a surreal experience. Like, when he's out there at camps and stuff, you can't, you might want to feel like, it's like when you ride in the car with somebody else driving and you want them to slow down, or you kind of pushing the floorboard to push the brakes that you don't have. But it's like you want to help him, make sure he's doing everything possible to get in that spotlight, to get noticed. And it's just surreal. Like, you just have to sit back and have faith and believe that he's going to make the right choices, the right decisions, and do what's necessary and to be successful.
Before we get out real fast, your son's name?
Elijah Kelly.
Elijah Kelly. Yeah. Keep an eye out for him, Clemson fans. Clemson's going to be looking at him, we believe. So anyway, thanks for joining us on the Clemson Insider. We'll have more as we get you set for Clemson, South Carolina. For Yusef Kelly, I'm Will Vandervoort. We'll see you next time.